Changing seminar. Cost is $10 per person or $18 per couple. Register early for discounted pricing. A delicious breakfast is included. That's Saturday, June 20th, 10 till noon at the Seaview Hotel and Resort, 401 South New Road, Galloway. Sign up today at jspharmacy.com. That's jspharmacy.com. Sponsored by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy.
WPG Talk Radio 1450 presents Ask the Congressman, brought to you by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy. Compounding medication solutions from juniors to seniors to pets. It's your opportunity to talk directly to Congressman Frank LoBiondo. Call 407-1450. Now, with Congressman Frank LoBiondo, here's Harry Hurley.
Thank you so very much, and welcome to the program. Hope you're watching on our YouTube channel at WPG1450.com. Certainly listen at Talk Radio, WPG Talk Radio 1450. We would like you to tweet your questions over the next hour with Congressman Frank LoBiondo. You can send your email questions through our website at WPG1450.com. This is our virtual, if you will, town square. It is Town Square Media, Town Square, Atlantic City. And our phone lines will open just a little bit at 609-407-1450. We're also simulcasting with our sister station, WOBM-AM, out of Toms River, New Jersey. So we welcome those listeners to our broadcast tonight. And this is our monthly visit with United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo from the 2nd Legislative District. And it is great, sir, to be with you. Good evening, Congressman.
It is great to be back, Harry.
How are you?
Fabulous.
Good stuff. Phone lines, get them blazing for the Congressman. He loves to take your questions, your input, 609-407-1450. And again, we have some email that we'll get into the program in just a little bit. Congressman, big vote recently that you were in the spotlight. You were one of 14 Republicans to vote against your party's budget. For those, and it even came up, I think, in a previous edition of Ask the Congressman, that think, hey, this guy votes one way and all of this different stuff. I mean, this is yet another example that you vote your conscience, don't you?
Well, I do, Harry. Well, I vote my district. And, I do not like going against the Republican Party on the big votes, but my responsibility is not to the Republican Party and certainly not the leadership in Washington. It's all about the people I represent. And this budget was just too damaging to working men and women in the 2nd Congressional District. Now, I'll give you there are a number of reasons, but the main example is we know the devastating news that we've had, the people who are suffering, all those laid-off workers, thousands of them, their unemployment benefits have run out, and, we're trying to get them some relief. We talked about that before. They have all kinds of problems they're facing, and in Atlantic County alone, there are more than 100,000 people on some kind of assistance.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
And scary.
And scary. For those of us who don't have to think about that and are very fortunate, it's a big number. And now we're going to tell those people who maybe can't pay their mortgage and are losing their house, maybe can't pay their kids' tuition and have to pull them out of school, that we're going to cut their food assistance. We're going to cut their food stamps? No, that's just a bridge too far.
So as tough as this vote seems, in one sense, it was a very easy vote for you, wasn't it?
Well, it was. And then the promise that was made a couple of years ago, as we look to deal with the mandatory part of the budget, they're not living up to the promise that they made a couple of years ago. I voted against it last year for many of the same reasons, and they sort of doubled down this year. And now the budget is a blueprint, and they're going to have to go through the appropriations process. But if they're willing to make a statement like that out of the box, it wasn't something that I could say I could support. It certainly would have been proud of supporting it. And, the fact that I was one of 14, the fact that I was the only one from New Jersey, it's just all about representing my district.
You're listening to United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo from the 2nd Congressional District. And what's interesting about your district, not only is it sprawling, give your listeners, Congressman, and your viewers an idea in terms of just how big your district is. And it is one of the biggest in the country, isn't it?
It is very large. Now, when we're talking about Montana, who has 2 United States senators and 1 member of Congress, we've
had on the show.
Yeah,
we've had the congressman.
We're a little bit small in that respect, but there are 12 members of Congress from the state of New Jersey. We're down one from the last census. New York was down 2, Pennsylvania was down 2. So we all had to pick up a little bit extra from New Jersey. But although I'm one of 12, our district is 40% of the state geographically. So in your mind's eye, picture a map of New Jersey. When you come over the Delaware Memorial Bridge, you are in the district. Essentially, you almost draw a straight line across to LBI. We start up in LBI, Ocean County. We come all the way down the coast. So we're part of Ocean County, Southern Ocean County. We're all of Atlantic County, all of Cape May County, all of Cumberland County, all of Salem County, half of Gloucester County, part of Burlington County, part of Camden County. And it's all a part of 8 counties. It's an enormous district, but yet we have roughly the same number of people as the other 11 congressional districts.
And what's interesting, and we did have your congressman from Montana, good guy. Wasn't he a Special Forces hero?
Yeah, Ryan Zinke.
What a guy. We had him on the program, Hurley in the Morning program. And when you say, hey, it's not like Montana where they have one member of Congress, but you have a very densely populated district. Montana is a lot of land, geography, but not as densely populated.
It's a great district. My goodness, it's a beautiful district. It has so many things that are so special about it, but that which is most special are the people. And we have a lot of diversity when you go from Salem County all the way over to the eastern part of the district. A lot of small businesses, a lot of farms, a lot of diversity, a lot of just fabulous things that we have right here in the 2nd Congressional District. 9
minutes past the hour. The congressman will be with us until a couple of minutes past the next hour, and he loves to take your phone calls, so don't be shy. You usually are not. 609-407-1450 phone lines are open. What has it been like for you, Congressman, in terms of, and you know your lane, you're at the federal level, but you are very much on the ground. You're not impervious to what's been happening here locally for most of your career, whether it was in the General Assembly or in the Congress over the past 20 years. The region has been pretty recession-proof. There were some times where Cumberland County was having a little bit of a rough time, and some parts of your district were not totally recession-proof. But my gosh, Atlantic City, which was worth $22 billion in ratables not long ago, is now worth just north of $7 billion. That's incredible to say.
It is, and it's absolutely devastating to those who have been affected by this. With very difficult path to go, very difficult to get answers, very difficult to come up with a way to move forward on this. We've joined together in a partnership between the state of New Jersey, between the federal government, between the local government, and the private sector. But everybody knows that it's not going to be fast and it's not going to be easy. But everybody has really pushed very, very hard to try to get us on the right path. And I think we're showing the front edges of that, but it certainly can't come soon enough.
Tonight's program brought to us by Jersey Shore Pharmacy, and they do a great job in compounding. That is both your prescriptions and also your pet's prescriptions. Keep that in mind. Jersey Shore Compounding, Mark Taylor and his great team. They're at the corner of Ocean Heights and Zion Road in Egg Harbor Township. From juniors to seniors to pets, that's compounding excellence, Jersey Shore Pharmacy. We're going to open up the phone lines for your United States Congressman, Frank LoBiondo, our leader in 2nd Congressional District, our congressman, and Thomas is going to be the first caller. Thomas, welcome to Ask the Congressman, and it's great to take your call. Good evening.
Thank you very much. Congressman, I've always been curious when the vets came to you with those thousands and thousands and thousands of signatures on that petition. Why did you go to the VA and ask them to dismantle themselves instead of introducing a bill in Congress that would make medical care the way it should be for the vets, where they could go to any hospital that's near them? And even if you didn't have any support in the Congress, at least then we would have a list of those against it and those for it, and the veterans could vote that way.
All right, Thomas, don't go away. Let me get your question straight. You're actually saying instead of going to the department where maybe he could get a waiver, or to go to the department that's actually responsible for this, you wanted him to take a different route Congressman, your thoughts?
Well, I'm a little bit confused, but let me
yeah, we hear you fine. Let
me take a stab at it.
What I'm saying is I thought that Congress was in charge, not the Veterans Administration. That's why the petition was taken to the congressman. And if he would simply initiate a bill that would allow the veterans to go to their nearest hospital.
Well, I did.
If we would either, well, I never heard about that. I heard
then let him speak. Thomas, let him speak. Let him speak. You'll hear about it now.
Well, we had a big press release on it. I introduced it in the last session of Congress. It's reintroduced in this session of Congress. And it essentially says, I think, Thomas, what you are asking for, that a veteran would have a card and make the choice of going to the VA or the doctor or hospital of their choice. Now, what I did with the legislation, and by the way, it was widely endorsed by a lot of the veteran service organizations, by other political colleagues, even those of the opposite party. And what we did was say that instead of turning it on for the whole country all at once, would have been pretty difficult for the VA to do, that we would make it a pilot project in the 2nd Congressional District. And I'm firmly convinced that first and foremost, this would have been best for the veterans. It would have given them the best possible care closest to home and given them a choice. And secondly, I believe the VA would have been able to see how completely workable this is and how cost effective it would be. So, but the thousands of petition signatures at the time, unless my memory is failing me, were for dialysis to be locally available. And a large group of people were behind that. I did take those petitions to the VA, and because myself and a lot of others, not me, but people pushing for it, we now have dialysis that's available locally and not through the VA. But the legislation that you're, I think, asking me to do, I have introduced. Now, if I'm confused or you're asking for something different.
What was the vote?
There's not a vote. It's introduced.
When will it be voted on?
That's impossible to say.
And also, the dialysis is a federal program that's available to everyone, veteran or non-veteran, long before you did anything about it.
Well, for years, dialysis was not available locally. If you needed dialysis,
the Veterans Administration, but anybody in this country, there is a federal program for dialysis.
Well, listen, I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just telling you that locally.
Don't have to. I know the way it works. What you're saying is you got it so that the veterans could go anywhere for dialysis, and I'm telling you that anybody, veteran or non-veteran, there's a federal support system for dialysis, so that really didn't change anything.
Hey, Thomas, before you run, I just want to get one point clear that I know I heard you say. You said that Congress is in charge, correct? So you put it at the feet of Congress. And something we're going to be talking about a little bit later in the program is Iran, and something that I believe is a treaty that's actually being done very different than anything we've seen in American history. Do you also agree that Congress would be in charge when it comes to ratifying treaties as well, Thomas?
It doesn't work.
Do you agree? Do you agree with that?
Veterans.
Do you agree with that?
I agree that you should stay on the subject.
Well, no. We're going to be talking about a lot of subjects, and I can see, and I've tangled with you on my program over the last 25 years. You're an unreasonable fellow, and you've had multiple follow-ups with the congressman. We're going to go to the next caller. It's Pat in Ventnor. Pat, welcome to Ask the Congressman. You're on the air.
Yes, good evening, Harry, and good evening, Congressman, and it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you, Congressman.
Thank you.
An absolute pleasure. And what I'd like to hit on, and I don't know whether you are familiar with this, but I was listening to the John Batchelor show one evening, and he had an admiral on, and the admiral was talking about the Antarctic, and he was saying that the Chinese had, in fact, I brought it up with Harry one day, the Chinese had built a $300 million ice cutter, which is called like a heavy ice cutter, and that he was afraid that sort of the Antarctica would be taken over by the Chinese, because now with the ice caps melting, it's very easy to sort of explore there, and they have like minerals and all sorts of wonderful things that would make any nation rich. And he said that the American heavy ice cutter, I think that's the right name, ice icebreaker.
Yeah.
He said that it was 40 years old, the American one, and that they were sort of behind the Chinese. And he was a little worried about this. And he also said that, well, we are pretty in a fairly good position, but at least we do have Alaska up there. But he also mentioned that the Russians are up there, and they have all their ice covered. And he was of the impression that the Chinese may be making like another navigational passage through that area, and that maybe sort of taking over the two poles. I was quite worried about it, and I thought, well, shall I just dismiss this? Or you would be the one to ask because you are so combined there with the Coast Guard. So I don't know, sounds maybe some silly question. Anyway, I'm going to hang up and listen. And thank you very much, Congressman. Have a nice evening. And thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks for your call, Pat and Ventnor. 609-407-1450 phone lines are open. She says China has this overwhelming technology compared to us.
Well, I'm not sure she said overwhelming technology, but China made the decision to have a state-of-the-art icebreaker, and the United States has decided against building new icebreakers. Our icebreakers are very, very, very old. We tried repeatedly to get authorizations for the Coast Guard to build new icebreakers. Was not given. We were put in a position where we had to lease icebreakers from other countries. Now, the Russians and the Chinese are a threat in that part of the world because of the wealth that could be derived from the minerals and the natural resources. One of the things, I was with the Admiral, Coast Guard Commandant, on Friday, and he talked about the increased presence of the Coast Guard in that part of the world because the ice cap is melting and the waters are much more navigable for a longer period of time. So it is something we're concerned about. It is something that we're going to have to pay attention to. It's one of the many things that is critically important that we can't lose sight of.
Congressman, I hate to bring this up because to reveal weakness is just, it's against everything that I believe in, but I well remember one term of Jimmy Carter as president and how decimated our military was, spare parts, weaponry, all kinds of degradation. This will be 2 terms of someone probably worse, I think arguably at best worse than what I just referenced. How concerned are you? And I mean, I'm asking you publicly what you can say relative to where we stand in terms of equipment, preparedness. I hear these stories, we can't be in more than one theater at one time, scary things. How are we doing?
Terribly. I think if the American people really understood or paid attention to the damage that has been done and is ongoing with the military readiness, with our ability to stay as a leader, whether it's on the sea or in the air or on land, what we're doing to our intelligence capability is putting us on the brink, on the edge. We have been trying as best we can to make sure that the dollars are at a minimum level. The military leaders, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the heads, military leaders of the different branches of the military are very reluctant to criticize the president. You can understand why. We've had that with the Commandant of the Coast Guard as well. A budget is put out by the administration. The military is, they have to follow the commander-in-chief. They were not even allowed to tell us how the cuts would be hurting them. They've been ordered to basically zip it up and not give us information. So we had, for the last couple of months, incredible hours and hours of hearings on the National Defense Authorization Bill, which passed out of committee and will be on the floor probably within a couple of weeks. It makes the best of what is a very bad situation, but this is not a good place we're in.
We're going to take a brief time out. Coming back in just 90 seconds, you're listening to Ask the Congressman with 2nd Congressional District Congressman Frank LoBiondo, 1450 phone lines are open. Don't go away, and don't be shy on the phone lines. You've been burning them up at 609-407-1450. We're going to take a trip to Iran when we come back with Ask Your Congressman. Ask the Congressman. Frank LoBiondo continues on WPG Talk Radio 1450. Again, 609-407-1450. Phone lines are open right after a question about Iran. And this is from a wide spectrum of observation, not just the treaty review that's coming up, the congressional review. And this is going to require whatever time the congressman needs to delve into this, because it's I don't want to say it's complicated, but there are a lot of moving parts. There's a lot to it. I still believe that this is an end run around the constitutional authority granted the Congress in terms of ratifying treaty. I mean, this is a treaty, whether they want to call it something different. I think it's a treaty. We'll see what the congressman says when we come back, and then we'll go to your email questions at WPG1450.com. William, we have your question, and Susan, we have your question in that order in just a little bit. Stay with us.
Visit the WPG Talk Radio 1450 YouTube channel through WPG1450.com to access exclusive video content from South Jersey's talk station. Watch every episode of Ask the Mayor with Don Guardian and Ask the Congressman with Frank LoBiondo on demand. Plus, see videos from Harry Hurley.
Tonight will feature major breaking news, Dateline Atlantic City,
and more. Subscribe to the WPG Talk Radio 1450 YouTube channel today.
Lately, I've been experiencing a lot of stress at work. I even put on quite a few pounds. So frankly, I just don't have the energy to keep my wife happy.
All my husband does anymore is go to work, eat, and sleep. I feel like we're drifting apart.
Can you identify with these comments? Men, if you are experiencing low energy, weight gain, muscle loss, loss of sex drive, and ED, find out the causes by attending a seminar on men's health Saturday, June 20th from 10 till noon at the Seaview Hotel and Resort in Galloway. The seminar will feature New Jersey's top doctor of 2014, Dr. Brian Steichner, director of the Institute of Men's Health and a board-certified urologist. Men and women are invited to attend this life-changing seminar. Cost is $10 per person or $18 per couple. Register early for discounted pricing. A delicious breakfast is included. That's Saturday, June 20th, 10 till noon at the Seaview Hotel and Resort, 401 South New Road, Galloway. Sign up today at jspharmacy.com. That's jspharmacy.com. Sponsored by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy.
WPG Talk Radio 1450 presents Ask the Congressman, brought to you by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy, compounding medication solutions from juniors to seniors to pets. It's your opportunity to talk directly to Congressman Frank LoBiondo. Call 407-1450. Now, with Congressman Frank LoBiondo, here's Harry Hurley.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to Ask the Congressman. Congressman Frank LoBiondo is here, and as always, the program flying by at 25 minutes past the hour. Still, believe it or not, about 77, 78 degrees outside. Maybe a shower tonight, even a thunder boomer or two. Tomorrow will be 86 degrees. Then it's going to cool down back to about room temperature, 70, 71 degrees for the next few days thereafter. But tomorrow, the warmest day probably this year. We're brought to you by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy at the corner of Ocean Heights and Zion Road in Egg Harbor Township. From juniors to seniors to pets, that's compounding excellence. Congressman, in terms of Iran, the Congress will be scheduling the vote on this, what they're calling review bill this week. We know that it passed the United States Senate. I think it was 98-1. I guess there was one member not present, so one member voted against it. It now will be voted upon in the House. What is your take on this? This seems to me like a legacy grabber with such a dangerous nation that's not trustworthy in any respect. I mean, for us to be saying they're reasonable and that they're only going to use this enriched uranium for some kind of, research purposes, I mean, come on. It's terrible.
It is terrible. And I will answer your question, but let me sort of set some foundational information for those who may not be aware. The leadership of Iran has basically tweeted out, because now they're big on social media, death to America.
Yeah.
The leading generals in Iran last week said they welcome going to war with America. Another leading figure in Iran said he would hope that all the Jews would gather in Israel and it would save them from hunting them down around the world. Now, these are the people we're dealing with. These are the people who have no intention of honoring any agreement. That what their intention is. People say, well, what are they after? They want the sanctions lifted. So,
but why is the president of the United States so desperate to get a deal? Any deal, it seems.
Well, the president, unless you are counting Obamacare as a legacy issue for him, he has nothing else to show in his 6 years as president that is in any way positive. There's a lot of negatives. So a lot of us in Congress, and I think a lot of people across the country, believe the president is desperate to sign anything that claims that we've entered into. He is sort of referred to, or people are referred to sort of as the Nixon went to China deal. I mean, now, but this is really dangerous. This is very, very, very dangerous because as the Prime Minister of Israel said in his address to Congress, that what the president and the administration are doing will guarantee that the Iranians have a nuclear capability.
Very quickly, too, right?
Very quickly, too. This does not make any sense. And for the president not to release any details, not to involve even congressional leadership, at the top levels, who keep secrets, they would keep it secret. But he doesn't want anybody involved. He wants to arrange a deal, and then he wants it automatically to be put into place and by executive order. That is not the way we are designed to work. If it is such a good deal, it should in fact be able to withstand the light of day. Let us all take a look at it, members of Congress and the rest of the country, and decide, is this a good thing or not a good thing? Is it verifiable or not verifiable? And let the experts tell us, does it provide a path for nuclear capability for the Iranians? I think once the details really come to light, the president's in even deeper trouble. Now, what we're going to vote on is good. It's in the right direction. I wish it were much stronger. The Democrats wanted to be stronger. I think there was a lot of pressure, especially in the Senate, to make this something that the president could sort of wink and nod at, but really not tie his hands, and maybe give him a little bit of a pause for a delay of a little bit, but it doesn't have the ability to stop the president. That's what bothers me.
Congressman, when there was a supposed, but just like the red line with Syria, there are no timelines. It's almost like freelance ad hoc foreign policy. It's scary, especially with some of the actors that he's playing this freelance ball with. So Secretary Kerry is there negotiating, and it's not going well. So now they've just extended the negotiation period, and they come home and say, we have the framework of a deal. Now, it seems to me the framework of the deal, when the very moment the president announces the framework of the deal, and the Iranian supreme leader and also Iranian generals are saying the president is lying, we're not going to comply with any inspections at all. And they're basically saying that he's lying to us. And after the experience with Obamacare, I don't want to take bad actors' word over my president, but this administration does have a track record of lying rather effortlessly to the American people. So when they come out and say they're not going to allow inspections, why would we, and I guess it defaults back to what you said before, why would we race? I guess because the sands of the hourglass are expiring and this administration spoils in a short period, and they want to get something on their scorecard.
That's what it seems to be. And of all the provisions of a so-called deal, that which is most important are unannounced spot inspections anywhere at any time.
Gotta have them.
If the Iranians were serious about complying, there wouldn't be a problem there. Now, the Iranian economy is in shambles. We understand from a lot of reporting that we have that the Iranian people, just average people in Iran, are really good people. They're not radical crazy like the leadership is, but that these sanctions are having a huge economic toll on them, and that if they are not lifted, there's only so far such a tolerance level that the Iranian people will go through before they reject the leadership, this radical leadership who's there. So the the Iranian government, the whole thing is to get these sanctions lifted, give them access to tens of billions of dollars, which will allow them to pull out of the economic doldrums, allow the people to be pacified, so to speak, and allow them to continue to develop a nuclear capability. So this is everything good for the Iranians. It's everything bad for the rest of the world, especially Israel and especially the United States.
And you would think if Iran really wanted to deal, would we have this aggression where we had to send ships to the Strait of Hormuz to shield vessels because of Iranian aggression? For those that don't know, Congressman LoBiondo is a maritime chairman. It's one of your committees that you chair in the United States Congress. I have to believe, and we've never had a chance to speak about this until now. This was late April when this was happening into now early May. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, I mean, very clearly, the Iranians are either in control or close to being in control in 4 separate capitals besides their own country. And this situation going on in Yemen is very, very critical. The Iranians are backing a terrible group over there, and it was pretty clear that they were shipping heavy weapons by sea. Now, through our intelligence, we were able to know about this. We were able to get up. And I think the Iranians blinked on that. At least it looks that way right now, although I don't trust them not to come back with something. We don't know what they're flying in, but certainly a lot of the heavy weaponry that had to go by maritime, by ship, it looks like it was denied at this point. So how are we to trust them? I mean, they're claiming this is all humanitarian. If it was humanitarian, let the ships be inspected.
Getting back to the treaty aspect, and I guess I use that term loosely because treaties have to be approved by Congress. This one looks like it's not going to be. This one, there's some kind of like weirdo agreement to review it. But is this a precedent that now future presidents are going to see something that was always within the power of Congress?
Well, it certainly could be. I mean, look at what the president has been doing by executive order. Now, to be fair, Republican presidents have done executive orders, but really no president...
Not treaties, though.
No president has done treaties. And how do you possibly circumvent... Now, the House of Representatives normally doesn't vote on treaties. It is the United States Senate. But how do you circumvent the United States Senate? I mean, do you next appoint a Supreme Court justice by executive order somehow because through some interpretation that you really don't need a confirmation?
Well, remember, President Roosevelt tried to expand the number of justices.
Yeah.
He didn't have control of the court 5-4, so he wanted to put several more justices on, and then the math would be his. These are scary times, and I think that the Congress has to really stay strong, or we're going to take departures from hundreds of years of history and go down a very slippery slope.
Well, this is one area that up to this point has been very, very, very bipartisan in opposition to the direction the president is going. And we talked about this before, and one of the leading voices of opposition on this Iranian deal is a United States senator from the state of New Jersey who is the Department of Justice is coming after pretty heavily.
Senator Robert Menendez, and he's been opposing the administration on some other matters as well. Interesting aside, Congressman, you're listening to United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo, our 2nd congressional representative, and this is our monthly program, Your Opportunity to Ask the Congressman, and let me prove that's true. William is in Egg Harbor Township. We'll go domestic, then we have some more foreign policy questions from listeners as well, and a lot more ground to cover. We're at 36 minutes past the hour. It's WPG Talk Radio 1450. Hope you're watching us on our YouTube channel at WPG1450.com. Shout out to our phenomenal executive producer of this program every month, Kyle McCann, who is our digital editor here, managing digital editor at Town Square Atlantic City. All 5 of our properties are radio stations here at Town Square Atlantic City. Domestic question, Congressman, from William. We have seen the riots in Baltimore and little about prosecution of the rioters. There is a federal law that calls for punishment of any person who crosses state lines to incite a riot. It is obvious that these so-called demonstrations are highly organized and financed by outside groups. When will Congress look into the Justice Department failure to enforce laws already on the books. Lawlessness only breeds more lawlessness. Your thoughts?
Well, absolutely correct. And Congress, I'm going to get you the number, Harry, of total oversight hearings that have been held. And not many people realize. Now, this is in a wide variety of issues. This will be another area where I think there'll be some oversight. But it is up to the administration, whoever it is, the president and the president's attorney general, to enforce the laws of the land and see to it that this kind of lawless behavior is not left, untouched, so to speak. Now, we know Eric Holder is gone now. He certainly wasn't one to do this. We don't know much about the new attorney general and how she's going to react. But the initial report that the Department of Justice is going to
Exactly.
When you've got a mayor who essentially, gave the green light, gave an okay for this bad stuff to happen. I mean, why is
quote unquote, we gave space to destroy.
Yeah, I mean, why would there not be an investigation of what that comment made? So Congress and, it almost doesn't matter the oversight hearings that we have unless you have a complete smoking gun that the national media will buy into. It's looked at as partisan politics.
Exactly.
Because the Republican-controlled House of Representatives House Oversight Committee, even though the chairman, Jason Chaffetz from Utah, gets very high marks for being bipartisan, will just say, well, you guys don't like the president, and therefore you're trying to give him a hard time.
And case in point, Congressman, the United States Congress, really historic, held, the former Attorney General Holder, and also Lois Lerner in contempt of Congress. No charges were ever brought forward. So if they're not willing to investigate, then these charges, they just wither on the vine. And as you say, they get away with making legitimate inquiry look partisan.
Well, and that's what presidents do.
When we come back, we're going to take our final break. You're listening, and I hope watching on our YouTube channel, Ask the Congressman, with our second congressional representative, Congressman Frank LoBiondo. More of your phone calls, 609-407-1450. When we come back, and guest listener Susan, you're up next. When we come back, and your question, what plan do we have to take care of the ISIS clusters that we're finding out are in our country? It was once the director of the FBI, Director Comey, telling us that ISIS is in 49 states. Then he updated it and said ISIS is in all 50 states. Now we're hearing there's training camps, maybe 17 states with training camps right here in America. We heard as recently as today, Congressman, ISIS or some offshoot of them announcing some kind of caliphate cyber serious attack today on up to 2 different entities in America. This was going to be computer type cyber terrorism. A lot to talk about with your United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo. We'll be back. It's Town Square's WPG Talk Radio 1450, South Jersey's talk station.
After a hard day at work, WPG Talk Radio 1450 wants you to sit back, relax, and unwind in your very own inflatable hot tub. Visit the 1450 Club and WPG1450.com for your chance to make your backyard a little more relaxing with a Best Way Lazy Spa Palm Springs inflatable hot tub. It's brought to you by Shore Medical Center. Healthcare at its best right here in Summers Point. For your chance to win, visit WPG1450.com.
Lately, I've been experiencing a lot of stress at work. I even put on quite a few pounds. So frankly, I just don't have the energy to keep my wife happy.
All my husband does anymore is go to work, eat, and sleep. I feel like we're drifting apart.
Can you identify with these comments? Men, if you're experiencing low energy, weight gain, muscle loss, loss of sex drive, and ED, find out the causes by attending a seminar on men's health Saturday, June 20th from 10 till noon at the Seaview Hotel and Resort in Galloway. The seminar will feature New Jersey's top doctor of 2014, Dr. Brian Steichner, director of the Institute of Men's Health and a board-certified urologist. Men and women are invited to attend this life-changing seminar. Cost is $10 per person or $18 per couple. Register early for discounted pricing. A delicious breakfast is included. That's Saturday, June 20th, 10 till noon at the Seaview Hotel and Resort, 401 South New Road, Galloway. Sign up today at jspharmacy.com. That's jspharmacy.com. Sponsored by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy.
WPG Talk Radio 1450 presents Ask the Congressman, brought to you by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy. Compounding medication solutions from juniors to seniors to pets. It's your opportunity to talk directly to Congressman Frank LoBiondo. Call 407-1450. Now, with Congressman Frank LoBiondo, here's Harry Hurley.
Hey, thanks very much, and welcome back to Ask the Congressman, United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo from our beloved 2nd Congressional District. That's right, we're definitely in love with our 2nd District. It's been here all our lives, and we love it, and the stakes are very, very high. Congressman, what plan do we have to take care of ISIS, these clusters now that we're learning about, training camps in our own country? This is a brazen enemy, is it not?
Brazen, brutal, beyond what the world has seen. We're speaking a little bit in generalities because obviously we can't talk about exactly what we're doing, but I have been in a closed session, a classified session with the director of the FBI, and I have been, at least initially, pleasantly surprised, and at this point in time, very pleased with how aggressive the FBI is taking this threat, how aggressive they are investigating the threat, how aggressive they are in reaching out and developing partnerships. You know, in years past, could have been where the FBI just decided they're good enough, they're smart enough, they do this on their own. They're not doing that. They're involving a variety of different partners that, you know, we have to be right 100% of the time. The enemy, ISIS, or whatever you want to call it, Al-Qaeda, whichever enemy it may be, they have to be right just once. So this is an incredibly difficult task that a lot of time and attention is being paid to. And I think the FBI is really being very aggressive here. I, of course, would like to see us be a little more aggressive, not just here at home, but overseas where the nest is, so to speak. And we have not done that.
609-407-1450 phone lines are open for your United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo. Let's say good evening to Ralph with his question. Hi, Ralph. Thanks for checking in. You're on the air with your congressman.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I need to get a document out of my military record. Who would I contact to do that? Is it an accommodation from Stanfield Turner?
Sure. Our office, our Mays Landing office, is the constituent office where we try to solve problems like this. And you can call 609-625-5008 or 800-471-4450. And that's the folks who are there, my team who are there, will try their utmost to get your problem solved.
That's 609-625-5008.
Correct.
Hey, Ralph, before you run, what war did you serve?
Vietnam.
Thank you for your service to our country, Ralph.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best.
Bye-bye.
You take good care. Call us again sometime. Let's say good evening to Al. Al, it's your turn to ask the congressman. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you, Congressman, for making yourself available. It's very necessary. We have a U.S. Marine veteran in Iran as a prisoner, and Amir Hekamat. And can you bring us up to date as to what's happening? And Monta Williams is taking a charge on trying to get him out, and I would like to know, where we're at of that on that.
Well, thank you, Al. Unfortunately, this is like the Tamarisi case with Mexico, where the administration just does not appear to be concerned with, an American soldier being held by an enemy. Now, Mexico wasn't an enemy, but how does the Secretary of State, how does the President of the United States, they have things at their disposal. Congress can pass resolutions, we send letters, and we do. But the administration can totally ignore us.
Well, they were at the table negotiating with these unthinkable
They're negotiating
animals.
with the Iranians over a deal the president wants. Why did we not hear anything about this? Why didn't Secretary Kerry say, well, we have to have this Marine back before we talk anymore?
And Fred is our next caller. Fred, I'm going to ask you to just give me less than a minute, because this is an issue that we have been passionately covering on Hurley in the Morning, WPG Talk Radio 1450. I want folks to realize this is an extended period of time that this Marine has been held, and he got tricked. He went there to visit his ailing mom, and they gave him permission to come. The moment he got there, they had intended all the while to lock him up, and they charged him with some bogus espionage. He was going to see his ailing mom. It was a life and death humanitarian type thing. They gave him permission. It was a setup from the beginning. They have tortured our Marine. They have drugged him. They've turned him into a drug addict. Then they have let him go through withdrawal, which anybody knows anything about that. It's as painful as anything you could ever imagine. And they have done horrific things. They put him in a 3-foot box where he can't completely ever stretch out completely. Congressman, they're torturing our Marine. They don't just have him. Yeah. It's not like they're feeding him lobster and filet mignon tonight. They're torturing him.
And that's what makes it even harder to understand why the administration does not seem to want to do anything. And if they are doing something, they don't have to tell us exactly what it is, but they could, Josh Ernst, when he does his press briefing, can bring this up and say, the administration is following in on back channels. But we, again, I go back to Mexico. You had the Secretary of State who was in Mexico, did not even bring it up. You had the president who was on the phone with the president of Mexico, did not even bring it up. And this poor guy in Mexico suffered terribly too. So this is a very, very bad situation, and we can only hope that public pressure, media pressure will force the administration. They decided they could get Bergdahl out when they wanted to.
That's right.
And
trade 5 Taliban generals.
You trade 5 Taliban generals, and now Bergdahl is found, or at least charged with being a deserter. So they pay attention to Bergdahl, but they don't pay attention to this guy. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it really doesn't. Except if you look into their record, though, where they do believe that deserting is hero status, and it's all of their mentors believe that, and we have audio to back that up. By the way, because everybody knows I can't resist breaking news, the NFL has suspended quarterback, NFL starting quarterback, probably the face of the league, the highest profile player in the history of the NFL, 96-year history of the NFL, the New England starting quarterback, 4-time Super Bowl champ, I think 3-time MVP, Tom Brady, has been suspended for 4 games. So just so you can keep a scorecard of this, we now know in the eyes of the NFL, it is twice as bad to deflate a football than it is to knock out a woman. I just wanted to point that out. It sounds like an editorial comment, but it is a historical fact now. Fred, welcome to Ask the Congressman. Your question, please.
Hey, Harry.
Good evening.
This is Freddie from the Hoot app, man.
Hey, Freddie.
About the ISIS situation. Can you hear me?
We hear you loud and clear, Freddie.
Yeah, about the ISIS situation. Well, the administration is obviously way over their head. I mean, Obama is, he is what he is. But the ISIS is being run by Saddam Hussein's generals and his military hierarchy. The religious psychos is just fodder for the television and freaking people out, cutting the heads off and stuff. But they're in charge of Mosul, and we do nothing. I mean, basically, Obama is going to have to realize that to win a war, and especially with the Iranians think he's a joke, and they know he's a joke. If they start bringing their own mechanized army into Iraq, he got a problem there, because Obama doesn't want to kill anyone. He doesn't want to really commit. It's really sad.
Freddie, do us a polite favor. Flip it into an actual question for the congressman so he can engage with you.
Okay. Here's an actual question.
Okay.
If the Iranians bring a mechanized army into Iraq, do you really think that President Obama is going to order or be able to coalesce the allies or the Saudis and people like that into a real battle against these people?
Thanks, Freddie. Good to be with you. 609-407-1450 phone lines are open. Congressman?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that. This is what it kind of boils down to. Over the last, 6 years, but the last couple of years especially, our allies do not trust us, and our enemies do not fear us. So just like the president is not taking any action with Russia and the Ukraine, just like the president has allowed the Iranians to sort of take over the situation in Iraq, I don't think I hope I would be wrong that the president could develop a coalition of allies that could make a strong enough stand, but I just don't see this president as either having the right advice or being willing to do it.
Freddie, thanks for a great question. 609-407-1450 phone lines are open. It's WPG Talk Radio 1450's monthly program, Ask the Congressman, with 2nd Congressional Representative Congressman Frank LoBiondo here tonight in studio. Congressman, bringing it down to the local level again, this past weekend was a big deal in Cape May County, celebrations involving the Coast Guard. Give your listeners an update.
Well, there were a couple very big things, and the Coast Guard has been a part of Cape May City and Cape May County for decades and decades and decades. And for those who may not remember, it is the only Coast Guard recruit training center in the entire United States of America. And this past weekend, the formal announcement was made where for only the second time in history of the Coast Guard in the United States was a whole county designated a Coast Guard county. There was a county in Georgia that was designated a little while back, and Cape May County and Cape May City were designated. Now, this is extremely important because it was about 20 years ago when a very ill-advised bureaucrat from the Department of Transportation, not the Coast Guard, made a recommendation, a formal recommendation during the Clinton administration to move the Coast Guard Training Center out of Cape May to Petaluma, California. I give great credit to the late Senator Frank Lautenberg for joining in and rolling up his sleeves. I was a pretty new member of Congress, and the senator was great to work with. The community was great to work with. Cape May County, Cape May City, a whole long list of social and economic criteria had to be met, and we came out with flying colors to the point of which there was really no decision to be made. It was going to stay in Cape May. Well, once that decision was made, I and a number of others locally who have worry about these things coming up again, decided that the footprint should be strengthened so that nobody in their right mind would ever make a recommendation like that again. We've had a lot of successes with strengthening the footprint of the Coast Guard Recruit Training Center, and the formal acknowledgement of the importance of Cape May to the Coast Guard was made with this declaration. It was done by the previous commandant. It had to go to Congress for review by Congress. There was a 90-day waiting period, and it was done with a Coast Guard festival where the base was opened up, and it was kind of a 2-day celebration. And then sort of on the flip end, we had a small business success story that is just incredible. Cape May Brewery, the Krill family, Ryan Krill and his father and his brother, they started by mixing beer essentially in buckets. They started with one employee who wasn't paid. They cut the ribbon on their expansion. They now have 30 employees. It is a small business success. It is a small business model, and something that is the backbone of not just South Jersey, but of the entire country, has huge growth factor with a lot of backbreaking work, a lot of sweat equity that went into this. And to be a part of that, to talk to the family, to listen to how they put all this together, how they went all about this expansion in the face of great odds, really gives a lot of hope and optimism to others that this can be repeated.
How important, I think you're saying it in so many words, how important is the Coast Guard and the South Jersey relationship?
Oh, it's incredibly important. So if we want to talk in terms of the economy, it is a huge driver in Cape May County. Huge. I mean, once you get past tourism, this really moves almost to the top of the list. And if you want to talk about national importance and a national asset, a national gem, so every Coast Guard enlisted person goes through Cape May. These are all volunteers. They are incredibly motivated. These are where all the numbers come from. It is a very remarkable asset locally and nationally to be joined together with, I mean, just it's a relationship that is beautiful to see. And the base itself is in a gorgeous location. They do a great job with it. And the men and women who are volunteering to serve their country are all going through there.
Congressman LoBiondo, about 5 minutes left in your program, and we'll be back during the month of June for the next episode of Ask the Congressman. Stay tuned to WPG Talk Radio 1450. We'll give you, as we always do, advance notice to when the next episode will be taking place. It's sometimes called Trade Promotion Authority. I think more oftentimes you hear it called Fast Track Trade Legislation, Fast Track Authority. Congressman, even Democrats are balking at giving the president this authority. What's going on?
Well, Harry, this is another example where I think the president is very misguided by what he's attempting to do with a Trans-Pacific Partnership, and he wants to do it expedited on something called Fast Track, so that the decision of the details that have to come before Congress, we cede all that to the president. We say, no, we don't want to look at the details. We won't take our time and debate it. We will just give you the authority to sign this. I have been against most of these trade deals going back to NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. That has resulted in a tremendous loss of jobs. I think it encourages companies to export their jobs. We now have General Motors who built a plant in Mexico. I mean, that's what NAFTA got us. And I believe that this would essentially do the same thing in encouraging companies to take jobs out of the U.S. And again, if the president thought this were such a good deal, why is he trying to rush it? Why does he not want the Congress of the United States to review this? And unfortunately, while there are a number of Democrats who are against it, there are a number of Republicans who are for it. And
do they think it's sort of capitalism, and they think it's good for markets and all
just
that?
Complete free market. Let it fall where it may. And I'm looking at it from the loss of jobs and the unemployment rate that we have in our district, and the jobs that were lost with previous trade agreements that we can point to directly, and what I feel would be additional jobs that will be lost not only here but across the country. And I can't support this. Unfortunately, I think it's going to pass the Senate. And the House, you know, there are a lot of Democrats who are balking. What is very interesting, which you don't get to see, my friends who are Democrats tell me that they are being called to the White House in very small groups, sometimes 1, 2, 4, or 5, and you can just imagine what those sessions must be like.
Congressman, it's named after your predecessor. I think when the story is written about your career, it has to be your name as well, because if I remember my history correctly, we almost lost either all of it or a good part of the FAA Tech Center. There was a big push. Am I correct? Wasn't there a big push to take it away?
Right after we had the push to move the Coast Guard Training Center, there was a very formal proposal that was made to close our tech center and move it to Oklahoma City and combine it there.
How close did that come?
Well, I'd like to think that it didn't come that close. You just really never know.
But it was a serious threat.
It was a serious threat. And then I want to again pay tribute to the late Senator Lautenberg for rolling up his sleeves. We sort of did this together. And once we started to dig into it, our technical center here is the premier facility in the world for safety, security, research, and development. These laboratories and engineers that we have don't exist anywhere else. And we were able to point out if they were successful in moving it, they would not only transfer the engineers, and do they transfer to Oklahoma or don't they if they live here, they'd have to reconstruct all the laboratories. They're one of a kind in the world. So our technical center has a little less than 5,000 people who work there. They do incredible work that no one else can do. I'm going to be there tomorrow to honor someone, Gus Sarkos, who has been in charge of the investigating fires, and after each crash over years, decades that he's been there, he's responsible for a tremendous number of lives being saved because his work along with his department has resulted in material that doesn't catch fire as quickly, that doesn't smoke up as badly, and that crash that we had in San Francisco about a year ago, well, a couple people lost their lives, but not from the smoke and fire.
No, they got run over.
They got run over.
Yeah,
because
they were covered in foam.
Covered in foam. But that was a direct result of the work that was done here at the Tech Center. And this guy is a national gem and hero. And I'm going to have a chance to be able to, along with others, formally honor him tomorrow.
Congressman, a couple minutes in your program. It's Congressman Frank LoBiondo, our distinguished representative from the 2nd Congressional District. It is Ask the Congressman. And I think this is a good end to your program for this month because your bosses are listening. You work for the people, and you know that. So you're responsible to be on the ground and, of course, in our nation's capital voting when you have to be. I think it's still true. Have you never missed a vote? Is that still true?
Oh, not exactly true.
It's pretty close.
It's been... Yes, I've missed a handful of votes, and I will tell you, when my dad was buried, when my wife's mother or father was buried, and there was one time when I was a freshman member of Congress where I had a kidney stone attack, and although I tried to stay and vote, they said no. But I've been a couple of years without missing. My voting percentage is one of the highest. But that's what we're supposed to do. We're elected to be there to vote.
But as you know, a lot of members miss a lot of votes.
They do. They do. And they have to answer their constituents. What I believe it has to pass the kitchen table test. If I miss a vote and folks are sitting around the kitchen table and they say, well, LoBiondo missed a vote because, does that make sense to them? Did I miss a vote because I just didn't make it there? Or did I miss a vote because of some family emergency?
Part of what I'm doing right now in terms of your work and your bosses that are listening, you serve on and you chair some of the most important committees in Congress. I know we only have a couple of minutes, but give a general update how things are going at your committee assignment level.
I have great committees. They're very relevant to what we're doing national and have great importance to what happens locally. Most members of Congress are on 2 committees. I'm on 3. The Transportation and Infrastructure Committee breaks into subcommittees. I did for 12 years chair the Coast Guard Committee. I'm now having an opportunity to chair the Aviation Subcommittee, and that is responsible for the Federal Aviation Administration and the work that we're doing for the reauthorization of that bill, which is coming due in September. I'm also on the Armed Services Committee. That sort of speaks for itself. And the 3rd committee is the House Intelligence Committee, which is reorganized this year because of the worldwide threat to America, and I was asked and very honored and humbled to be asked to chair the CIA subcommittee. Now, most of that work is classified, and we don't get to talk about it very much, but they're very, very bipartisan committees, and it's an honor to be able to serve on them.
Congressman, thank you. Our time flies together, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Enjoyed it very much. Thank you. You've been listening, and I hope watching on our YouTube channel at WPG1450.com. Our most recent example of Ask the Congressman. This is a monthly program that gives you, the listener, the opportunity to pose your questions, and many of you did tonight, in an opportunity to live ask your questions, whether it be on our phone lines or through any of the social media outlets that we make available to you, including email as well. Mark Levin is right around the corner. I will be back in less than 12 hours for Early in the Morning Tuesday. I can tell you we have a jam-packed program, including the president of the Atlantic City Board of Education, John Devlin, at 7:35. We had an exclusive on Friday that literally thousands and thousands of you have taken the opportunity to read that breaking news.